the R.M.Williams OUTBACK podcast, bringing to life the characters that feature in OUTBACK magazine and more.
Hello there, I'm Terry Carley, Senior Associate Editor at OUTBACK. Something a bit different for this episode, my colleague Ken Eastwood interviews tour guide Peter Taylor of Finnis River Lodge in the Northern Territory. But the very entertaining Peter is much more than that, as you'll hear shortly. As Ken says, Peter is one of the Territory's real characters. Enjoy Ken's chat with Peter, also known as Fingers. More about that later. You can read all about Peter and more about the top end in the wet in issue 167 of OUTBACK magazine.
I first met Peter Taylor in the heart of the top-end wet season on Finniss River Station, which is a cattle station and tourism venture about 2 hours' drive southwest of Darwin. He'd come to check my car could cross a flooded creek to get to the heart of the property. Friendly and instantly likeable, it turned out Peter is the tour guide on the property for the high-end luxury lodge there. Later, he'd take me birdwatching to see everything from masked finches and dollar birds to stunning emerald geese, and would also drive a huge airboat across the flooded plains of the station, bouncing over the top of vegetation, fences and obstacles to see crocodile nests, cattle, and the key sites on a property that had received more than 2 metres of rain in a couple of months. But the more I chatted with Peter, the more I realised he's a top-end character who has had a fascinating life. From fishing and hunting to becoming a top-end ringer, then working on oil rigs in Australia and around the world, and now a tour guide and wildlife carer, he's had a wild ride in a wild part of Australia. G'day, Peter, and welcome to the OUTBACK podcast.
G'day, Ken. Good to see you again, mate.
Yeah. So tell us about Finniss River Station, where you work now. What's it like? How does it change throughout the year?
Okay, it's an absolutely stunning station. It's only a small station, as in Northern Territory standards. It's only 50,000 acres or 200 square kilometres. But it's an absolutely beautiful little station, very lush. Our southern boundary is the Finniss River and the Finniss River floodplain. We've got 17 kilometres of coastline as well. So, we've got some beautiful floodplain there. Like you say, it's very good for the airboat. At the moment, 50,000 acres, about a third of it is underwater with the wet season. Probably nearly had another metre of water since you were here last. So we're pushing 3 metres of water for the wet season. It's been a very good wet for us. So, we're going to have plenty of grass this year. It's going to be a good season for us.
Fantastic. And you're running Brahman cross there?
Yes, we are. Yep. No, the Brahman are really suited to the tropical environment, so they do really well up here. Yeah, we've experimented with a bit of Brangus, but the Brahman just get the weight gain that we need, and I think we're just going to stick with them guys.
And I think you told me you have about 4,500 head?
That's right. Yep. And our main market is export into Indonesia.
And that's out of the boats in Darwin?
That's right. That's out of Darwin Port. Usually the boat will leave on a Friday night, and usually by Wednesday morning they're offloading them in Java there somewhere. But we also have markets in Malaysia, Vietnam and Philippines.
And I think you told me that you lose a few head each year to crocodiles.
Well, we estimate, it's only a bit of an estimation, but we probably lose 30 head a year to crocodiles because we are on the floodplain. We are on the banks of the Finniss River. Right now, the Finniss River has spilled right out into the floodplains and that, so the crocodiles get around quite a bit. As the water drops, we've dug dams in various places around the floodplain, and the crocodiles tend to move into one of them, and they'll sit in there and pick off a few of our cattle as they come in for a drink later on when it dries up. But the crocodiles are protected, so we've just got to learn to live with them. They do a bit of egg collecting on the property. Some guys have licenses and that, and they come out and they egg collect, and they'll give us a bit of a percentage of their egg take. So that sort of compensates us a bit for the cattle that we lose. Plus, the crocodiles are really good for tourism as well. Like most of our guests that come to the lodge, they want to see a crocodile.
Yes, of course. Egg collecting is now done by chopper, isn't it, rather than airboat?
Yes, a bit of both, but usually they'll lower in a cage over the nest just to protect the egg collector, and then they can access the cage via airboat, or they'll lower them in a chopper as well. And I think in 2024, I think they harvested about 95,000 eggs out of the wild here in the Northern Territory, which all go to crocodile farms.
That whole area that you're in there, Finnis River, and I guess the area that since the 80s has been called like Dundee Downs and that sort of area, named after Crocodile Dundee, evidently, when it was developed. When did you first experience that sort of area? Was it as a child?
Yes, but what drew me to the area is I grew up in Darwin. We moved up to Darwin with my father, with the family, in 1978. And we used to go camping and fishing out a place called Stingray Head, Dundee Beach now, when I was a child. Back then it was about an 8-hour trip from Darwin to get out there, and now it's 90 minutes. So, yeah, the place has changed a little bit. But that's what drew me to the area, coming out here camping and fishing as a young fella. Then eventually my father bought a block of land out here, and I sort of come out here to help him build a shed and never left.
Yeah.
So I sort of, ended up staying out. I just fell in love with the place. Like, I love the lifestyle. I love the nature, the fishing. So, yeah, I've just never left.
And the fishing, obviously, barramundi. What else do you get out there?
Oh, we get, if you're in close to the coast and that, you get nice threadfin salmon or jewfish, plenty of barramundi. And then, you only got to go 20, 30 Ks offshore and you're into the reef fish as well, which is or your golden snapper, your tricky snapper, your coral trout, your red emperor, or your reef, and your pelagics as well. A lot of sailfish, a lot of marlin and mackerel. So, it's all here. And then the mud crabs as well, good crabbing in the area. Pretty easy to get a feed.
Fantastic. And so doing that as you're growing up, were you encountering ringers? Like, what attracted you to station life initially?
At that stage, I was working at Dundee Lodge, which was the local pub out here. I was the night manager there. And the guys from the station used to come in quite a bit for a beer of an afternoon or a night time. And I just got made friends with them. And I got a bit sick of working in the bar, the pub life. And they offered me a job on the station. So I took it. They were pretty busy. The Venturan family bought Finniss River Station in 1987. And it was pretty run down. So there was a lot of work going on there, a lot of fencing, a lot of pasture work and all that sort of stuff. So, that's when I got involved in the early 90s and never looked back. Just absolutely loved it.
And you were mustering on horseback then?
That's right, yeah. We had a horse plan of about 25 horses, and we used to use them for the mustering and that. We used to use motorbikes a little bit, but mainly the horses. Then I joined, I was on the station there for probably 6 years. And then in 97, I got on the oil rigs, went out on the oil rigs for about 19 years. And then when I retired off the oil rigs, come back to the station, all the horses were gone. And it was all Toyotas, quad bikes and helicopters.
So tell me about that change then over from that great lifestyle of being a ringer out in the wild, out in the bush that you love, out in nature, to then working on oil rigs. I mean, that's a pretty big change. What sort of was your thinking at that time?
At that stage, I absolutely loved the station life, and just that lifestyle really suited me, and I really enjoyed the work. But then I had a couple of mates that got jobs on oil rigs, and I found out how much they were earning and how much time off they were having. So, I love the station lifestyle, but there wasn't a lot of money in it in those days. It was all about lifestyle. Yeah, when I found out how much money they were earning on the oil rigs, I just started applying for jobs on the rigs and kept harassing them until I got a job. And then, went out there as a roustabout, and in 19 years worked my way up to senior tool pusher. I don't regret any of that either. It was a really good learning curve. You're always learning out there. Really interesting environment. It's a hard environment. Everything's big and heavy. But, don't regret any of that. It was a great lifestyle there for a while. And I was lucky enough to travel Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, India. So I did a fair bit of travelling overseas as well, which I really enjoyed, and ended up retiring off the rigs.
What does a roustabout on an oil rig actually do?
A roustabout is pretty much the bottom of the food chain out there. He does a lot of maintenance work, a lot of painting and that, because there's a lot of rust and that out in that environment, and mainly working with the crane, because everything, all your tubulars, everything comes out on a boat, a rig tender, and then gets offloaded by the crane. So mainly you're working with the crane, landing loads and hooking up loads and slinging up loads and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I started out there as a roustabout and then sort of worked my way up through the ladder over the years, like goes roustabout, floorman, then you're working on the drill floor, and then lead floorman. And then from lead floorman, you go to derrickman. You're working up the derrick, throwing the pipe in the elevators and all that sort of stuff, and managing the mud pits. And then from derrickman, you go to assistant driller, and then to driller, and then to tool pusher, and then senior tool pusher. So you're pretty much senior tool pusher's second in charge on the rig.
Wow. And so what was the first oil rig you worked on, and describe what that's like?
I first started working, the company at the time was Sedco, and then it changed to Sedco Schlumberger, and I was working on the 703 in the Timor Sea, working for American company Sedco, and we were working for a company called Woodside. So Woodside in Australia, they just started all the Laminaria project up in the Timor Sea. They had some big oil finds up there, and that's sort of what started my career when they sort of moved into Darwin and harassed them to the point where they give me a job. I got a job interview, went in, and I did the job interview. I don't really know how it went, but then I sort of rang them up. I used to ring up the lady in the office every week, and I think I just kept ringing her for about 6 or 8 weeks, just letting her know I was still there, ready to go, bags packed, and keen. So I think she just got a bit sick of me annoying her, so she gave me a job.
An oil rig, like, what is it like? Is it 12-hour shifts? Is it a terrible place to work, or does it just depend on the crew?
It depends on a lot on the crew and the people on board, but I found it a great place to work. Like, it's also dry, so there's no alcohol or anything out there. So it's a bit of a health club as well. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. You're working 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week, and you just, like, at that stage, we were doing 21 days on, 21 days off. And, yeah, basically you just eat, sleep and work. And, I really enjoyed the work too. It was hard work, but I enjoyed it. Got a kick out of it. And like I say, you're always learning. Like, you don't get sort of boxed into a place. Like, there's always room for you to develop and move up a level and earn better money. So that's always there. And then you're a bit like being in a footy team. You sort of develop really good mates out there, a bit of a brotherhood. So, it's a pretty cool environment. I enjoyed it. Some people don't last long. Can be a strain on marriages and things like that, being apart. I sort of thrived on it. I loved it.
And that work led you to working in oil rigs around the world. So is there much difference in oil rigs depending on what country you're in?
Yes, there is. Like, when you go into another country, usually the deck crew will be the roustabouts and the floormen. Like, usually the deal when you go into another country, India, Indonesia, Vietnam, you got to hire a percentage of the locals onto the rig. So you experience all these different cultures. All the chefs in that are all local guys. So, you get all the different foods and all that sort of stuff. It took me a while to get used to the Indian food, but towards the end, I loved it.
Great. So that era finished, you turned back towards being working on stations again and being a ringer?
I sort of retired at the end of 2015. The American company I was working for at that stage was Transocean. The price of oil went below $40 a barrel, and it was not economical enough to look for oil at that stage to get into the exploration. So Transocean, the company I was working for, they went from about 125 offshore oil rigs down to about 20. So they had pretty big layoffs in the industry. I sort of got offered a job over in Nigeria, but then I had a couple of mates who'd already work over there, and they said it wasn't the greatest environment to be working in. And at that stage of my life, I didn't like, they were offering nearly 30% extra in danger money and all that sort of stuff. And I just decided I didn't need that in my life. My wife agreed and I retired. So I spent the next couple of years I've got an acreage here at Dundee, 60 acres. And I just spent the next couple of years building sheds and fencing and doing a bit of contract work fencing. And then I met up with Rob Van Turen, who owner of Finniss River Station, at the pub one night, and they were mustering. And he sort of said, "Will you come back and give us a bit of a hand mustering?" And that's how I slowly got drawn back into Finniss River Station. Still enjoy the lifestyle, being out in the bush all the time, working with the cattle. Great lifestyle. And, you got to do something when you retire, you can't do nothing. If you don't move it, you lose it. So I'm happy, even now, I'm happy to wake up every morning and go to work. I still get a kick out of it. I'm lucky I've got a pretty cool job.
I love chatting to some of your colleagues up there at Finniss River Station and asking them about you. And one of them said, well, you made the transition over to be a tour guide rather than a ringer because you learnt you can talk shit all day and get paid for it.
Yes. Yeah, no, well, I've had a few back dramas as well. And my neurosurgeon, he reckons I need to work smarter, not harder. So I think it was a pretty easy transition in the end. Like the guys, the station manager and that, Brad, they told me I was going over to the dark side because I was getting into the tourism side of the business. No, I absolutely love it now. Really enjoyable, taking guests out and giving them experiences that they would not normally, only read about or see on TV, like close interaction with the wildlife. Like you say, the airboat is pretty cool. But even just taking guests out and meeting our cows or showing them the wildlife and talking about the trees and the landscape and that, I get a kick out of it.
I think you said to me that if we'd been chatting 5 years ago and I'd told you that you were a tour guide and really into bird watching, there's no way you would have believed me.
No, that's it. I would have laughed at you, mate. 5 years ago, they sort of offered me the job as the tour guide because I know the station really well. I do know a lot of the wildlife and the trees and that. So, yeah, basically that's what got my foot in the door. But 5 years ago, if you would have said I'd be a tour guide and I'd be really into the bird watching and all that sort of stuff, I would have laughed at you. Like I told you, at my place, I've got an outside toilet and it's got no walls, it's got no roof and that. It's just a porcelain bus in the bush. And it's got a great view. You're out there with all the trees and the birds and that. So I get up in the morning now and I take my binoculars down to the toilet and sit there on the toilet with my binoculars. And my wife sees me going past with my binoculars in the toilet roll and saying, "I don't even know who you are anymore." Absolutely love it. Really enjoy it. And I get a kick out of taking the guests out and showing them around as well.
And Finniss River Lodge has quite a lot of international guests. And I know you said you've shown some Belgium guys who come every year and book out the place. You take them bird watching and they're just so excited to see so many species. What are some of the species that you see that really excite you?
I got a few different favourite birds. I love the black cockies. Pelican, believe it or not, I really like the mannerisms of the pelicans. I like watching them take off, watching them land, come skiing in across the water and half crash. But the way they stick together and that in a mob, it's pretty cool. So, yeah, I like the black cockies. I like the pelicans. The jabberoos, watching the brolgas dance is amazing. When the brolgas are here mating, and that's usually about July, we get hundreds. I've seen flocks of 300 brolgas come in, and to see the males dancing and trying to impress all the females, it's pretty cool, pulling out all their best dance moves. But we're very lucky here on Finniss River because we've got so much diversity. We've got the river, we've got swamp, we've got floodplain, we've got woodlands, and we've got 17 kilometres of beachfront as well. So the diversity of birds that we have, it's incredible. And that's why these guys come over from Belgium and they just want a hardcore bird watch for 4 days. Or like I was telling you, that the best we've ever done is we got about 70 bird species in one day, which just blew them away, just incredible. And they've got these big bazooka cameras where they probably take 3,000 shots a day because every time they press the button, it's going. So, yeah, no, they really love it, really love it.
And one thing that many people might not know about you, Peter, is the fact that you're also a wildlife carer. So you've showed me pictures around your kitchen table. You might have 30 little joeys hanging off your kitchen bench in little pouches. And tell me about that and how you came about doing that and how you perceive, the role of a wildlife carer up there.
I understand some of the other stations and that they think of them as a bit of a pest. because, they compete with the grass and that. But I look at it this way, like the roos, they help keep the grass down, which sort of stops fires from being as bad as well. So they'll maintain the bush. If you haven't got the roos there picking, cleaning up the bush and that, because they'll eat leaves, they'll eat bark, they'll eat all sorts of stuff. If you start knocking out the roos, well, then the fires get worse. So I sort of look at it that way. My wife, she sort of got me into the caring. We're members of a group called Wild Care. If a joey or something gets hit by a car, people will get the joey off the mother, hand it into the vet. The vet will check it out, make sure it's all right. They'll hand it out to a carer. That could be us, or they'll give it to a carer in the Darwin area. But when they get them ready for release, they'll give us a call, because I've got big paddocks that are fenced off that I can give them what we call a slow release. And we'll sort of let them go into the bigger, like slowly put them in a bigger and bigger paddock, dehumanise them, and then I just open the gates. And they'll come and go, and eventually go. I've got a couple of guys here hanging around that have been hanging around for 5 years, a couple of big Antilopine wallaroos that they know when they're on a good wicket. But, yeah, eventually they go. Hopefully they do all right. So, yeah, no, and that's something I really get a kick out of as well, like having little joeys around the house everywhere. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Is it hard to let them go?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, you definitely form relationships with them. Like if you're bringing up a little joey that's started off in your hands and they only just fit in your hands, and like my wife, Sandy, she's feeding them every 4 hours, feeding them a bottle every 4 hours while they're young. You definitely form relationships with them. And it's heartbreaking if you let them go and then you see, well, been ripped apart by a dingo or hit by a car up the road. But yeah, it's still fulfilling. Like it's awesome to walk out there and see a few roos hopping around the back paddock. And even on Finniss River Station, we've got so much grass and that there. Like once the floodplains start drying up, we've got green grass all year. The wallabies down there don't compete with the cows for the grass. It's not really a problem. Since the lodge has been there nearly 5 years now. We've got little wallabies coming in around the lodge early in the morning and late in the afternoon. And our international guests just love it. They love waking up, walking out on their veranda, and there's little mums and joeys or young males fighting right in front of them. And so it's really cool experience.
I've got to admit, when I was there, just seeing even bustards, Australian bustards walk past, an increasingly rare bird, and then you've got the wallabies coming in past your bedroom. It really is a stunning place to visit, and I would encourage any of our listeners to think about visiting Finniss River Lodge. It's a great place. Look, last question from me, Peter. In all that wisdom that you've gained over so many different experiences in your life, what are a couple of things that you've learned?
I've got a great respect for crocodiles. I just think they're an awesome animal. And back in the early days, we used to do some silly stuff, like we were hand planting Oliver Hymenacme runners and that on the floodplain, walking out there knee deep and all that sort of stuff. And I sort of wonder how we got away with it now. Maybe the crocodile population wasn't so, there weren't so many crocodiles around back then, because like we'd only finished shooting them in the early 70s. In the late 80s, early 90s, the population probably wasn't there. But now they've sort of reached their peak population. A lot of the stuff we used to do back then, you wouldn't even entertain doing now. So, yeah, great respect for the crocodiles. Other than that, life's short, so I've just learnt to appreciate every minute of it. I love being in nature. Yeah, just appreciate every day as it comes, mate.
I love it. What a great way to finish it. Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us on the Outback podcast today, and best wishes for whatever's round the corner for you next, and to all the staff at Finniss River Lodge. Thanks for joining us.
No worries, Ken. No, absolute pleasure. Like I keep telling Rob there, the owner of the station, this is my last job, so I'm just enjoying it. I'm just here to enjoy it and enjoy the ride.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Yeah, that was fun chat. That was good. I never even got to ask you about Fingers, about your nickname.
Oh, Struth. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Oh, well, hey, next time, Ken.
Terry back again. That was fun, wasn't it? If you're wondering, Peter lost part of his finger to a mud crab about 30 years ago, hence the nickname. After we recorded the podcast, I contacted Peter to find out more about it. He explained he lost the little finger on his right hand. He and his mates were out fishing in an estuary near Bynoe Harbour, which is about 40 kilometres southwest of Darwin. They'd had a few beers when the tide went out and they decided to look for some mud crabs. Essentially, you slide your hand in the muddy hole and get it back out before the mud crab can grab you, and then you dig them out from underneath. Peter said, "I went to hook him, but he must have got caught on a rock or a root, and he hooked onto my hand and damaged the blood supply." It took Peter and his mates about 6 hours to get to hospital, partly because they had to wait for the tide to come back in. Peter's finger started to go cold, then it went blue, and eventually black, and had to be amputated. Peter said if it'd been in Sydney or Melbourne, it may have been able to be saved with microsurgery. "There's a saying up here," he said, "when you're in pain, catch a plane." He lost just the one digit, but the name Fingers stuck. Peter's okay with it. Without the accident, he wouldn't have the nickname or this good story to tell. Peter features in Ken Eastwood's story On the Top End in the Wet in issue 167 of Outback magazine. To get a copy, go to outbackmag.com.au. Thanks for listening to the Outback podcast. It's produced by me, Terry Cowley. Host this episode is Ken Eastwood. Editor-in-chief is Mark Muller. Original theme music by Isaac May.